This is Mac OS Ken.
Apple Pay Later starts its slow roll. The OS beta train is already moving again, and the curtain is finally up on Apple Music Classical. It is Wednesday, the 23rd of March, 2023. I'm Ken Ray, and this is news from Mac OS Ken, brought to you by yours truly and sponsored by BetterHelp Online Therapy. Get 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/macosken. This show is also sponsored by Collide, endpoint security powered by people. Have you ever wanted to hug a security company? I can only think of two, and Collide is one. I cannot recommend enough checking out their website, honest.security. That's the URL, honest.security. They say Honest Security is an approach designed to help organizations achieve two distinct goals: educating employees about security and dramatically improving adherence to the security team's recommendations and compliance objectives. And that is why I want to hug them. They work to get your team on board with the whole security thing, educating your people and making them part of the solution rather than treating them like a problem. Now, if you're an Okta user, Collide can get your entire fleet to 100% compliance. After telling your people what they need to do and why, if after a certain amount of time a user's device isn't cutting it on security, that user cannot log into your cloud apps until they fix the problem. Hopefully, though, if you're using Collide, your people have come to see security messages as proactive steps that they are happy to take to keep your organization and themselves safe, and nobody gets locked out. Visit collide.com/macOSKen to learn more and book a demo. That's KOLIDE.com/macOSKen. Collide.com/macOSKen. Apple Pay Later is making its way out. Originally announced in June of last year, Apple says the service lets users split purchases into 4 payments spread over 6 weeks with no interest and no fees. No one will ever say what took so long, but the service is finally drawing breath, albeit haltingly. The Cupertino company issued a press release Tuesday saying that the service is available-ish in the U.S. Starting on the 28th of March, Apple said it would begin inviting select users to access a pre-release version of Apple Pay Later, with plans to offer it to all eligible users in the coming months. Once it is open, the release says users will be able to track, manage, and repay their loans through Apple Wallet. That is also where they can apply for loans for as little as $50 to as much as $1,000. Those can then be used for purchases online or in-app on an iPhone or an iPad with no special work on the seller's end. Enabled through the MasterCard Installments program, Apple says merchants that accept Apple Pay do not need to do anything to implement Apple Pay Later for their customers. When a merchant accepts Apple Pay Later will be an option for their customers during checkout online and in apps on iPhone and iPad. Remember Monday when China's Commerce Minister seemed incredibly accommodating to Apple CEO Tim Cook? I told you that the two met to discuss Apple's continued development in China, and an official statement had the ministry saying, China will unswervingly promote high-level opening up, steadily promote rules, regulations, management, standards, and other institutional opening up. I know, that wording is weird, but you got to admit, it did sound accommodating. On Monday. Then came Tuesday's report about Apple CEO Tim Cook meeting with China's chairman of National Development and Reform Commission, Zhang Shanji. When they met Monday, a piece from Apple Insider says Cook was apparently urged by the chairman to strengthen Apple's data security and personal privacy protection. And that is all anyone has to say about that. Well, anyone official anyway. For its part, Apple Insider says, the comment is baffling given Apple's actual track record when it comes to privacy. For the most part, its use of encryption and a privacy-focused approach have led to it becoming one of the most secure organizations of its kind. Whatever the case, the chairman of the National Development and Reform Commission does not sound nearly as accommodating as the Commerce Minister. Charges of seriously anti-union activity have been leveled against Apple. Engadget says the Communications Workers of America Union, or CWA, has filed charges with the National Labor Relations Board, NLRB, asserting that Apple illegally intimidated and fired workers at Houston and Kansas City, Missouri stores in retaliation for their labor organization efforts. Folks in KC were reportedly fired for being slightly late, calling out from work, or even making typos in timesheets. Once let go, though, they were reportedly forced to sign a release of all claims in order to get their severance pay. Signing the release basically meant they couldn't go after Apple for any sort of unfair treatment because they had signed a thing saying they wouldn't do that so they could get the money that was coming to them. In Houston, the piece says, Apple allegedly questioned workers individually about their union support and offered improved conditions if they dropped their labor support. Those that persisted in pro-union activity were disciplined and threatened with deteriorating conditions, the CWA claims. No word in the piece on next steps between the parties. Seems like only yesterday we were talking about the latest operating system releases from Apple. That's mostly because it was yesterday. We talked Tuesday about Apple on Monday releasing iOS, iPadOS, and tvOS 16.4, HomePod and Studio Display Software 16.4, macOS 13.3, and watchOS 9.4. And there is no rest for the wicked, where wicked equals developers and people who talk about these things. Pieces from Apple Insider say the Cupertino company on Tuesday released the first developer betas of iOS and iPadOS 16.5, macOS Ventura 13.4, watchOS 9.5, and tvOS 16.5. While it seems too early to talk about new features in the relatively distant operating systems, it is apparently not. Mac Rumors has word of two features upcoming in the upcoming iOS 16.5 update. Working to make its virtual assistant smarter, one piece from Mac Rumors has Apple giving Siri a new ability. According to that report, iOS 16.5 Beta 1 gives the assistant the ability to start a screen recording with a voice command. Sounds as easy as it sounds. Basically, you say, "Hey, Siri, start a screen recording," and it does. You gotta be careful, though. Mac Rumor says if you tell the virtual assistant to take a screen recording, it takes a screenshot. It is both amazing what technology can do and what technology can get wrong. The other new feature is less aspirational, more for the punters, if you will. Another piece from Mac Rumors says the Apple News app in iOS 16.5 Beta 1 comes with a Sports tab. According to the report, Apple has positioned the Sports tab in Apple News right in the middle of the bottom of the navigation bar, putting it between Today and News Plus on the left, and Audio and Following on the right. I really hope that means taking sports out of the main news feed. If I want to see what's happening in sports, I'll turn to the sports page. Or tab. Whatever. Speaking of turning, let's turn back to the OS updates that we actually got this week. Another piece from Mac Rumors says with the arrivals of iOS 16.4, iPadOS 16.4, and macOS 13.3, Apple has reactivated upgrades to the new Home architecture. The piece has Apple indicating that brings faster, more reliable performance, especially for smart homes with a lot of smart accessories installed. Fingers crossed that that's the case this time. Apple made the new architecture available last October, then pulled the upgrade last December. MacRumors says that happened after users reported issues such as HomeKit devices becoming stuck in an updating or configuring status, devices going missing entirely, invitations to share the home with other users failing, HomeKit secure video recording not working, and more. Usually we say, and more, when we're talking about something good. Anyway, fingers crossed. Godspeed. More news in a moment, but first a word from today's sponsor, BetterHelp. Online therapy. We tend to think of therapy as a difficult thing for difficult times. Doesn't have to be either. Maybe you just want to do a few sessions for a sort of mental health check. Make sure things are going the way you want them to go. Whether something is vexing you and you need help, or you just want to see what condition your condition is in, you should consider BetterHelp. Whatever your situation, BetterHelp connects you with a licensed therapist who can help. And you don't have to worry about the wheres and whens. BetterHelp is entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist. If they turn out to be not right for you, you can switch therapists anytime at no additional charge. The online service and hassle-free switching have been two parts of BetterHelp that I have really appreciated. But see what you think. Discover your potential with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/macOSKen today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/macOSKen. BetterHelp.com/macOSKen. Apple TV Plus has announced a new show in the works about which it is being needlessly cryptic. The Cupertino company issued a press release this week announcing the 8-episode limited drama series, The Savant. Starring and set to be produced by multiple award-winning actress Jessica Chastain, among others. Apple's release says, inspired by a true story published by Cosmopolitan, the storyline and character details are being kept under wraps for The Savant. But it was published in Cosmopolitan. A piece from TechCrunch says the story the show is based on is about a woman who infiltrates online hate groups. Was that so hard, Apple? You need to be cagey about that? Seriously? No word on when the series will hit the stream. And finally today, the music experience, a year and a half in the unmaking and remaking. Apple Music Classical is finally out to the masses. Boiling the app down, a piece from MacRumors says the new Apple Music Classical app offers Apple Music and Apple One subscribers access to over 5 million classical music tracks, including new high-quality releases, in addition to thousands of exclusive albums, and other features like composer bios and deep dives on key works. Users can look up works a number of ways, including by composer, by title, by conductor, and by catalog number. And if you have no idea what you are looking or listening for, the service is said to have you covered there as well. Quoting MacRumors again, over 700 playlists are available to guide listeners through 800 years of music, with more to be added, according to Apple. Beginners can start with the Story of Classical audio guides, which blend expert commentary and selected works to introduce key composers, periods, instruments, and classical terminology. You had me at whatever I just said. Sounds great, but what does the lead guitarist of one of the world's most influential yet enigmatic rock bands think of the service. A piece from The Independent out of the UK has film composer and Radiohead guitarist Johnny Greenwood singing hosannas and heyzannas to Apple Music Classical. The paper had the music maker saying, "What I'm encouraged by is that so many people who listen to the kind of music that Radiohead make also have a deep interest in classical music. But until now, it can be quite off-putting trying to discover more about composers. I just think there's a whole market of people who are interested in artists like U.S. composer Steve Reich, for example, and think of them as all being quite similar. But until now, when you look for Steve Reich on Apple Music, it's quite off-putting, and it's quite limitless, the amount of recordings and pieces. And the clarity that it's going to give to people when they want to actually step into this amazing world of music is going to be a huge help, I think." Of course, it is the 20-somethingth century. What's audio without accompanying video? Apple has produced a dramatic 30-second ad for the service, which you can catch on YouTube. If you're an Apple Music subscriber, jump in. Available in Brazilian Portuguese, Dutch, English, French, German, Italian, and Spanish. The Apple Music Classical app is available now in the App Store. China, Japan, Korea, Russia, Taiwan, and Turkey not included. Today on the Mac Observer's Daily Observations podcast, Apple's making it harder for non-developers to get developer betas of its latest software. TMO writer Nick DeCorval brings us the story, plus I'm worried that changes in Apple Podcasts are reducing discoverability for independent podcasts. I will confess I mix up the terms network and channels in the show, though the questions are still sound. Hear what I mean on the Daily Observations podcast from the Mac Observer, online at macobserver.com or wherever you get podcasts. macOS Ken, brought to you by me and sponsored by Collide, endpoint security powered by people. Learn more and book a demo at collide.com/macOSKen. This show is also sponsored by BetterHelp Online Therapy. Get 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/macOSKen. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media, online at backbeatmedia.com. You can reach me a couple of ways. Info at macosken.com or call 716-780-4080. Until next time, that is news from macOS Ken. I'm Ken Ray.
Ciao.